Welcome to the Prime Property Finance Podcast with Gareth Morgan and Mark Watts. This unique podcast will dive deep into all areas of property investing finance, going behind the scenes with property professionals, investors and clients. Between us, we have 35 plus years experience in property finance. The podcast has been launched to share knowledge, mindset requirements and experiences of successful investors and professionals. We aim to simplify many of the complicated areas of finance and investing and provide valuable and easy to implement tips. Keep an eye out for our new longer episodes every Tuesday and our shorter ones every Friday. When we started this podcast, we honestly didn't know where it would lead. We just knew there were a lot of conversations happening in property and finance that investors weren't always hearing properly, especially the real stories behind the headlines. Over the last 100 episodes, one thing has become clear. Property investing is rarely as simple as social media makes it look. What we've also learned is that investors and business owners who succeed long-term tend to have a few things in common. They stay adaptable, they think strategically, and they focus on building sustainable businesses rather than chasing shortcuts. In this episode, we want to reflect on the journey to 100 episodes, some of the biggest lessons we've learned, some memorable conversations, and where we think the market is heading next. Can't wait to join Mark for this one. Mark, welcome back. We are on episode 100. Who'd have thought it?
Who'd have thunk it, eh? Who'd have thunk it?
It doesn't seem like that long ago that this idea was brought about, and then a couple of events happened, and I spoke to a couple of people, and then all of a sudden we made the decision quite quickly that this is what we should do, and now we're on 100 episodes. So yeah, quite strange to say that we've hit that. It's been a commitment, no doubt. What's your general sort of thoughts and feelings to where we are at the moment?
So 100, we started, when was it? February last year. 100 was not even in the thinking. I think we spoke about, if we can get to 50, we'll be all right. Then after 6 episodes, like, right, we've run out of stuff to talk about already. Are we going to get to 50? So we're at 100. So I'm quite pleased with that. Yeah, and the guests that have come on and, enrich the conversations. I'm sure it'd be pretty boring if it was just you and I for the last 100 episodes from that perspective. So yeah, it's as I say, it's been a commitment. It's been enjoyable, but I think I realised there is so much to talk about around property, and even things you think you've already spoken about. The environment has changed. You need to talk about it again, but with a different hat on and a slightly different spin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to get the kind of point across to our listeners is that, why we started this podcast in the first place was that we were having, and there's a number of reasons. One were we saw there was some gaps in education and content that we'd see on social media and the conversations that we'd have with people who you think, really? Oh, that's one, you haven't either understood what you've been told, or you've taken it in the wrong manner, or just maybe the information you've been given is incorrect. And we don't confess by any stretch of the imagination to know it all, because we're very aware that we don't. And we're always, I wouldn't say we're always happy to be humbled. We're always open to being humbled or proven wrong, because we only have our set experience in our set of circumstances, and there's always various angles to these things, because there are so many moving parts and there are so many nuances within property investing. It's such a huge space, and if you chunk that down into the various strategies and things, there are more nuances again. So all we wanted to do is have sort of honest conversations around where we see things, and ultimately trying to help our clients and investors understand finance better and help support them with some education around what we do and the finance journey, what's going on in the market, and also bring on guests then to help kind of give us their perspective on their angle on things. And, I wrote a list of some of the guests that we've had on. We've had tax planning and tax advice. We've had town planning specialists. We've had legal advice or solicitors. We've had a number of different lenders and different stages of their journey and different types of lenders. We've had a number of different investors and developers. We've had a couple of different letting agents from different parts of the country with their experiences of various things that are going on, auctioneers, valuers, service accommodation service providers, social housing specialists. There's heaps of different areas that we covered, and no doubt that there's many more conversations that we'll have in due course. But ultimately, we want that. What we'd like, I guess, from our listeners is to be guided by them as to what did they like. What have they liked out of the previous 100 episodes? Are there any that jumped out to them that the conversations were good? Should we invite certain people back for round 2, as it were, to slightly talk about different topics? Are there people in the industry that they think that we should have on because they'd be a great guest for us to interview? And that's the guest side of things. And then from a topical side of things, we've covered various different strategies and things and structures. And, if there's any topics that they'd like us to revisit and talk about in a different way, then we're happy to do so. Or if there's something that they didn't understand, again, we'd love to just kind of chew the fat and or if you'd like to come on as a guest, then let us know and we'd be happy to have that conversation with you. So yeah, it's just a case of, nodding to the fact that I know you were quite keen to discuss. So those are some of the people that we've had on, but you're keen to discuss how much the market's changed in 100 episodes or what we've had to endure during that time, and some of the challenges we've had to overcome from a business perspective in that time frame. So do you want to share some of those things that have happened in that time frame?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So if you've ever spoken to me or asked me the question, what's my outlook on all of these things, absolutely give you my opinion. I'm not an economist by any stretch, and I've shared my opinion on here at various times. One of my go-to lines has got to be around I think we do a period of stability now. We've had enough going on. We could just need 12 months of no action, no drama. Let the market settle and we can all take a breath. And then we made a list of what went on the last 12 months since starting this podcast, and that didn't happen either. So just run through some of these things. So we've been through 2 budgets since doing this, the spring and the autumn one. Both of them had extreme rhetoric around how negative these budgets were going to be, which, whilst there is an impact in terms of landlords, what it does is destabilize the market, right? So a knock-on effect to our sector, our industry, is that the mortgage rates just go wild. They're up and down all over the place, and it just puts significant pressure on what we do. So 2 budgets. The second one probably hurt a little more for landlords than the first one because of the interest rate changes. The tax changes for landlord income. We have had the Renters Reform Bill, which has actually come to fruition this month. But that has been talked about for months and months and months prior to that, and all sorts of different conversations. That's in, that's out. This is in, that's out. Shake it all about. All that sort of stuff has gone on. Donald Trump and his tariffs, again, not directly impacting landlords per se, but it sends the markets wild. There's instability at a macro level, which means the cost of funds change and swap rates. So again, mortgage interest rates jump all about the place. We've had the EPC deadline's been extended, so that can's been kicked down the road. But in the interim, we've been encouraged by lenders to have conversation with landlords about borrowing more money to get their property portfolios up to X. It transpires those that sat in their hands probably did the right thing because we don't know what the rules are going to look like. So we got that. We've obviously got the conflict in the Middle East, which is the latest thing to hit us as well. So that is, for the last, 3 months in? This was a 7-day war. That's now on its 3rd month, I think. So, or certainly late into its 2nd month. And that has had a direct impact on interest rates and the impact that's having on oil supplies and various bits and pieces. And don't get me wrong, there's a humanitarian conversation there, so I'm not avoiding that. I'm just talking about the impact it's had on the UK markets. And we were just joking, actually, the most stable thing that's happened this year is the housing minister has lasted for 12 months. He's been in situ since 2024, I think, or 2025, I can't remember. So we usually go through one of those a year as well. So he's doing well to hang on, although I'm sure Keir Starmer might not be there and he might move on with him. I'm not sure with the cabinet reshuffle.
And ultimately, that's also the latest, and really topical item is we could be heading for a change of leadership, couldn't we? And the polls across the country now have been huge swing in where the government is likely to be. And that's just going to throw more fuel in the fire in terms of negative press and the view of the world on the UK and how that impacts the market then as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I can get into politics. I think Andy Burnham is the front runner for this, assuming he can win his by-election to come back in as an MP. And by all accounts, he's a spender. So he's going to want to spend more. So we shall see how that goes. And then on the topic of MPs, we've also had Angela Rayner get sacked for not paying her stamp duty, which is a little bit ironic. And I can't remember the lady's name, the one who also got sacked because she evicted her tenants in order to get higher rents when she was involved in the Renters Reform Bill, and the hypocrisy of doing that in the first instance.
Rushanra Ali, I believe her name was, and we did have a good giggle at this. She was the UK's homelessness minister in August 2025, and she resigned because she'd evicted tenants from an East London property and then subsequently relisted it for a rent at a significantly higher price. And the situation sparked major controversy and accusation of hypocrisy because she had been working on the government's Renters' Rights Bill, which was designed to outlaw landlords using such tactics. So, yeah, we had a good little giggle at that one. And, that just goes to show what we're up against in the market, isn't it, in terms of where things are at and the challenges that we have to deal with.
So the conversations I was having towards the end of 2024, COVID had settled down and we felt like we were coming at the back end of COVID. And I was going, yeah, I think 2025 will be quite stable now. And obviously not. And I'm sure this year won't be stable either.
And I've said this a number of times of late as well. Within Prime Property Finance, we have a bi-weekly team meeting. And one of those agenda points is, market news, what's going on in the market. And we went through a small period of there's not much actually happening. That's good news. Our point there is no news is good news. However, the majority of those meetings involve something to do with Trump, something to do with conflict, and something to do with government changes and legislation, which means ultimately, and what you just said there about Andy Burnham potentially coming in, he's a spender. Well, what does that mean? Well, he's going to increase government spending. On what? Who knows? Infrastructure and various other bits probably, and maybe the NHS or I don't know. But he's going to come in and start spending money. That's going to cause some sort of inflation at a time when, inflation's already bubbling up again now because of the impact of oil prices, etc. So that could push inflation even higher. And then that will obviously at some point start to feed into interest rates. So time will tell what will happen, and a lot of that will be determined by who's elected or if there is a challenge on the Prime Minister, of course. One of the things that from our perspective is no news is good news because the market is stable and everyone can carry on as normal. Now, from an investor perspective, chaos and uncertainty is actually a good place to be because during times of chaos and uncertainty, a lot of buyers sit on their hands and wait and see. And active investors, that's where the deals are done because there's more supply than demand. And therefore you are, able to pick up better deals and do more deals in that time frame. So we are seeing, we are actively looking to get back into the market, having been sat on our hands for a little bit because we see this as quite a good opportunity at the moment to buy. Because like we've spoken a bit about, people are looking to exit for various reasons. And we think that there's an opportunity in the market at the moment. So if you are coming across any deals that you think is a good deal and it's not one for you, then we'd welcome having a look at it.
Hands up.
Yeah.
Definitely. But also that I guess you're right, but it also depends where you are on your investor journey, isn't it? Where you are in the cycle of investing. Some people want stability. This works well for us, and people who are actively trying to acquire because it produces opportunity. Those who just want to sit on their investment or whatever it is are probably begging for some sort of stability so that they can predict quite nicely what it's going to look like in 10 years' time. and so on. So I guess it's horses for courses on that front.
Yeah, and then we were just trying to pick out some of the key themes that from the episodes of the conversations that we had. And I think one is that there's no perfect strategy. I think every successful investor approaches things differently. Everyone has their own set of goals. They have their own risk appetite. They have their own timeline, depending on where they are in their life journey. And so, it isn't actually, there's no right or wrong. The best strategy is something that you can sustain, you can buy into, and you can commit to for the longer term. And that will see you stay the course and stay in the game for a longer time. And the longer you're in the game, the more likely you are to win, because you'll avoid the ups and downs in the short term. And everyone knows the value of properties over time will keep going up. So the longer you're in the game, you could speak to lots of people who will say to you, one of my biggest regrets was selling that property or those properties that time. If I'd held on to them, I'd be a lot wealthier now. So you have to do things that are right for you in your current set of circumstances. But if you can stay in the game for long enough, then you should be successful.
Yeah, so I think to echo that is the theme there is that every person we know is successful started. We speak to a lot of people who never start, who kick the tires, procrastinate, and never actually do anything. So just starting. It doesn't have to be this earth-shattering deal, all money out, etc., etc. Just get started.
Absolutely. And then second part of that, those people who have their own strategy, they think long term, they get started, but the themes then are patience, resilience, systems, self-belief, consistency. Those are the kind of traits that we've kind of had a number of conversations that come out, and these overnight success stories that have taken 10 years, and there's plenty of those. Everyone found it difficult to start with, and as they've kind of kept going, things have started to happen for them. So, just keep digging in, but like you said, get started. Anything else from your side as a reflection on where we've been on this journey?
Yeah, I think my reflections are a bit broader. I think, given the list that we've just gone through and all the thing, it's a bit of a parody, a bit of a look back, a bit of a joking look back as to where we've been the last 12 months. But clearly this has happened, is that the UK property market is robust. It can withstand a lot of pressures from whichever direction. So, as an asset class, it's a stable asset class. So I think that's something to remember. And I think that just UK people in general are robust also. I've written here, everything good that happens seems to happen in spite of politics, not because of it. People just get the blows, they bob and weave, as it were, and they just kind of get on with it. That's why we say stability, because we just want to know what we're dealing with. Show me the rules of the game and I'll play the game. Stop changing the rules is kind of the message. But people are, UK people, we adapt, we move, we have to, and we'll always find a way. So that's the bit that I've seen really with all this change. And some of the stories you hear with some of our clients are nothing short of remarkable, what they've been able to deliver in a 12-month window in a period as unstable as we've had. And they're still just smashing it out the park. So there's no reason, if they can do it, then so can someone else.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we just want to kind of take this moment and say thank you to all of our listeners and everyone in the community, because our listeners, our guests, our clients, the team, for everyone involved in making this happen. James, who edits things for us, Steph, who manages the process. A big shout out to those guys. Obviously to yourself, Mark, and all our guests. Yeah, really appreciate it.
And to you. Go on.
Yeah, give myself a pat on the back. And look, it's been exciting. There's been plenty of other people in the background that have offered support and advice and guidance, and a big shout out to you guys as well. And yeah, ultimately, it wouldn't be, we're not by any stretch a diary of a CEO or anything like that. We're not looking to take over the world by any stretch, but our downloads and listens is continuing to grow, and that's positive for us. Positive reinforcement that we're on the right track, and people are benefiting from it. And so, yeah, if you have any stories, particularly that of your experience that you'd like to share with us, we'd welcome it. It's a bit of a weird one, a podcast. You don't get when you present it to an audience, obviously you get the real life feedback and you can tell whether there's engagement and there's questions. Obviously with a podcast, it's a little bit more difficult like that. So if you do have any questions, please do send them in, or if you've got any comments that you'd like to share or any tips, then that'd be awesome. And that's it. I guess just finalizing with some advice really is, this is part of this is an education piece, and you can take what we say and use it. You can take it and throw darts at it if you want to. Do whatever you want with it. Like I said earlier, it's just our opinion and on our viewpoint on certain things. There'll probably be people who have listened to this in the past and listened to some of the episodes and not agree with what we said and would like to challenge us, and that's also good. And please come forward if you do challenge us on anything. Then, because like I said, things change as well, and the market moves quickly, and criteria changes and assessment, and a lot of things within property, and that's from underwriting, an underwriter's perspective, a valuer's perspective. Things is also subjective, and so there will be times when people say, "Oh, you can't do that," and other people say, "Well, you can because I've done it," and that's because a little bit of the subjective nature of the industry, which makes it more of a challenging area to navigate, really. But that's our job, and that's what we have to do day in, day out to try and navigate those challenges, really. But ultimately, understand finance and all the aspects of it that form part of the overall finance piece. Think long term and just keep working hard. Keep your head down. Keep working, moving forward, and things will happen for you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Consistency over intensity.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Mark. And here's to the next 100 episodes.
Oh, all right then. Challenge on.
So there we are, 100 episodes in. We're still learning, we're still evolving, and still seeing just how fast this industry changes. But one thing that hasn't changed is the importance of good conversations, good people, and making informed decisions. To everyone who's listened, shared an episode, supported the podcast, or joined us on the journey, thank you. We genuinely appreciate it. And it's great to have that feeling when people stop you in the street or see you at an event and kind of give you the nod and that they've been listening and they've enjoyed the content. So thank you very much. We do genuinely appreciate it. And here's to the next 100 episodes. See you soon. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope you have learned something and have some tips to take away. We'd be very grateful if you enjoyed the show. You could give us a review and share with anyone that you know that may be interested. And of course, subscribe to the show so you can get notified when a new episode is released. If you'd like us to answer any questions or go deeper on a specific topic, please drop us a message at primeproperty.finance. See you on the next episode.